Joining us now is Jonny Gould. Jonny Gould, our sports journalist, our sports expert. To begin, what is Qatar spending all of this money on? Why is this sum so much bigger than we've ever seen in World Cup history?
Natasha, it's plain and simple that Qatar are as rich as Croesus. They are the richest country ever to stage the World Cup in terms of disposable income, if not in terms of political might. That would have perhaps belonged to the United States back in their World Cup in 1994. But of course, as the Netflix documentary hints at, suggests at, the corruption and all the dirty dealings which enabled Qatar to host this competition has manifested itself in a terrible start to the competition. We are seeing the persecution of minorities, including Jewish people and LGBTQ people, as the tournament is just one match old. It is a terribly sad sight to see for a game which is supposed to be, as Pele called it, the beautiful game with universal values. They do not belong in Qatar.
Well, you know, Qatar is obviously not the first nation in history to be guilty of human rights violations. It has hosted the World Cup. We know this. But we keep on, talking about the corruption that exists within FIFA and Qatar's role within that. You know, Qatar has a very interesting relationship with soccer, funding teams, funding specific players. I mean, how does a country that has very little soccer culture, I mean, we don't know much about the Qatar's actual national team, right? How are they having such a big impact on this game?
Indeed, they have bought themselves their place at football's top table. You may recall that the Qatar Foundation sponsored Barcelona for a while. They own beIN Sports, which is a huge multinational television company which broadcasts across the Middle East and I believe to Israel as well. It's hired two of Britain's leading football commentators and reporters, Richard Keys and Andy Gray from Sky Sports, who did 19 star-studded years in the UK before doing 11 years in Qatar. And of course, they are a significant holder in French football as well. They are trying to build things in a hurry, but like a lot of Arabian Gulf countries, perhaps Qatar should take an eye or a look at their sisters and brothers in the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, who are doing it in a different way, in a slightly more inclusive way, in a more tolerant way, because the pictures that are coming out of Qatar in the first 48 hours are a very sorry sight to see. Israeli journalists are being intimidated by local people hoisting Palestinian flags and chanting for Palestine. And any Israeli reporter who tries to talk to local people, when they say that they're from Israel, they are denied access to that interviewee. And not to mention all the terribly sad and frightening, I must say, for LGBTQ people being warned about public displays of affection in Qatar. This is simply not a place to be hosting a tournament of universal values.
Now, we've obviously been discussing money and its role in FIFA, its role in this World Cup. My question is, now that we're putting the money down, who should it be on? Who's going to win the World Cup this year, in your opinion?
Not Qatar, not in any way. It will be to the detriment of that nation unless they change their ways. My tip in football, and wouldn't it be lovely to be able to talk about football, is Argentina. And I say that because they still have, excuse me, the greatest footballer of them all, Ronaldo aside, or Portugal aren't going to win this tournament. But Lionel Messi has his last opportunity to be a world champion. And I think if he adds the Copa America to the World Cup, then he could be regarded as the greatest player of all time.
All right. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you think Argentina is going to win the World Cup this year. I'm not going to say who I'm rooting for, but it's Argentina. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Jonny Gould. We're out for a quick break.